3:30 before the close, and I'm doing the White Knuckle Report because this is the climax of the week. We're going to get the conclusion tomorrow, but I just want to show you guys what I'm thinking, what I'm looking at, because honestly, to me, today really sort of feels like the day that you have solidified that this whole thing we've been in since November 2021, this moment here on this chart in NVIDIA. And we're going to keep watching NVIDIA. That's going to be the new thing to watch because it's leading everything. It's going to do a lot of the most predictable and self-fulfilling prophecy type things. For example, the first obvious thing we're going to track on this channel is that it's literally going to the 1618, kid. And what are we talking about? We're looking at weekly candles right here. I've been saying this whole dip, right, since November 2021, this whole dip, right? This is the macro Fibonacci structure. This is the setup to go to the 1618. And then I have said the whales will dump here. That's what I said. I said that. So we're going to track to see if that's what's happening, because right now this is running up to the 1618. This is the first major market cap asset. This is a huge company, a well-known company that is broken into new all-time highs, heading basically running the gamut on the Fibonacci here. Let's see how it runs the gamut. This thing is telling us where the broader market is headed, and especially like the modern, like technocratic sort of aspect. So let's go to the SPY. Speaking of modern technocratic aspect, right? Look at these other, indices here, right? So we got NVIDIA. What do we see S&P 500 doing here? It's past the 702. Where is all this stuff headed, right? Where are we headed? All I can say for sure is that we're probably, definitely, literally, certainly headed to new all-time highs at this point, kid. That's the confirmation that I'm feeling today, and need to share the White Knuckle Report with you guys to just solidify that, because I'll make that statement now to see if it comes true. But obviously it's going to come true, right? You can clearly see the S&P 500 is going to new all-time highs. You can clearly see that the NASDAQ is going to new all-time highs, right? So you can clearly see all this. Okay, so let's bring it home, right? I'm going to bring it home, right? This doesn't have to be a long video, but look at this, right? Like, okay, semiconductors, new all-time highs. Look at this. NASDAQ at the 786. Like, obviously, if there's any kind of pullback here, it is literally a dip to buy because you're going to new all-time highs. Like, literally, like, it's so much more obvious than it was back here. And back here, look at this. Remember this. Remember I said, back test the almighty trend line will be the greatest buying opportunity of the year, dude. I mean, come on, dude, come on, right? And you're at the 786, like all this self-fulfilling prophecy, like basic stuff. Here you are, right? What do you think is going to happen? Point is, I don't know what's going to happen. Point is, I know I'm buying the dips. So let's talk about the deepest dips. That's where I'm bringing it home to. I said I was bringing it home, and I didn't even bring it home. Bringing it home to literally crypto specifically. Let's just go through my favorite cryptos right now, because this is what you probably want to make sense of, right? Look at every bullish thing I just said about these markets, and look at cryptos. Look at TRB. Look at Link. Look at these on the weekly candles. Just they're at the bottom of their range, and then you look at the stock market, and it's just roaring. Like, make sense of this, right? What's going on here? What do you think's going to happen, kid? Well, I think there's two major basic scenarios going to come out, and I'll just keep running through the cryptos. They're all doing the same thing, but I'll say my basic, schematic for what I think's playing out here is like cryptos might go through this big capitulation in a minute here, because the stock market's obviously going to have a pullback at some point, right? Obviously going to have a pullback. Maybe it doesn't have a pullback like for another couple weeks, possibly, right? Something like that. Oh, look at BAN getting absolutely smoked. I love it. Zcash, like obviously at the absolute bottom of this range. I mean, this is the number one spot you'd want to be buying this, right? And then the other one, Anchor. These are two I'm going to be buying. It's good to look at the market caps, because that's partly why I'm buying them, is because of their market caps relative to their supply. That ratio is golden on both Anchor and Zcash, to the point where, like, I'll do a separate, we'll get into that in other White Knuckle reports later, but specific supply and demand dynamics of Anchor and Zcash make these, like, this is going to go crazy, kid. Crazy. If we're about to have some kind of bull market, which I think that's probably how you make sense of this whole scenario. The whole scenario being, how is crypto just getting smoked and killed to death when the stock market is just roaring to literally new all-time highs at this point? Well, I think things are going to start to catch up to each other. Something's going to happen where either the stock market is about to take a nasty pullback and crypto is going to capitulate, or the stock market's going to go higher and crypto already is capitulating right now, and like within a week it'll be a lot higher than it is, right? One of those two scenarios is essentially the only really ways you can make sense of it, right? Stock market's going to all-time highs. A pullback seems like it could be in order for the stock market, and crypto's already bearish, so it makes sense that it could fall farther since it already looks like super gnarly, and the stock market is exhausted to the upside at this point. But now it's like the self-fulfilling prophecy of the uptrend. Like, you're buying the dips now. You're just it's the basic one. We talk about self-fulfilling prophecies of Fibonacci and moving averages, but really the uptrend is the basic self-fulfilling prophecy. And it's like this first level of that one is that you're at the 786, the self-fulfilling prophecy of the 786, right? Pullback seems like it's in order, but if you don't get one, what does that say about the nature of this market? This thing, like I always said, it's a money volcano, a nuclear warhead of money waiting to explode. That's what I've been saying since back here. I was really early in saying that, but look, we're already higher than that place. So, it's obvious, right? It's just uptrends. And this whole thing is an uptrend. This massive, go back as far as you want to go back. Go back as far as you want to go back. This thing's a freaking uptrend, right? So, in the weekly chart is the dominant chart that I trade personally. And so what do I see is, like, obviously a pullback in his order, but as I said before in previous videos, discussing the concept of divergence, right? You have no divergence. So on this peak right here, you're just at new RSI levels you haven't seen in a very, very long time. But usually when you're indicating that a top is in, you're going to start to see divergence, like, for example, here, right? So you see a huge peak in the RSI, right? Kind of like over here, right? Huge peak in the RSI, and then the market just dumps epically, right? But then it goes to higher highs, but the RSI does not go to higher highs, right? So this is divergence. You technically call that bearish divergence, but it indicates that you're in an uptrend, right? So when you have what they call bearish divergence, meaning lower highs on the RSI but higher highs in price, that means you're in an uptrend, and that's exactly what this chart is reflecting. So in this current scenario that we're in, just taking the NASDAQ as a specific example, it's in line for a huge pullback based on what happened previously when it was up in these levels on the RSI. That was immediately before the March 2020 crash, right? You had no divergence. You were just at huge highs on the RSI, but with no divergence. And you're going to, you expect that you're going to have to get a knockback there, which is also a self-fulfilling prophecy in itself, because it's like, there's no more headroom on the RSI, right? But the idea is, however far this thing gets knocked back, it's likely to keep going higher again, since this first peak formed with no divergence. So that's what this situation is. We're at a peak, and there's no divergence at the peak. So you can't assume that the upside move is over. Instead, you have to assume that a pullback is in order, and after that pullback, you're going to start setting up divergence, and those divergence can set up for like a long time. Look how long these ones set up. These divergences began in August of 2020, and they ended in November of 2021. So we could be at the very beginning of a cycle like that, kid. That's what I'm saying. Like a freaking bull market, like the ones you read about, right? And I always said that would make the most logical sense, considering how much liquidity is in the system. That makes the most logical sense based on how much capital there is out there sloshing around, as they say, right? The market's got nowhere to go but up. It's the same. It's the logic of anything that's valued in a currency that they keep printing. They're debasing the currency, so everything else theoretically goes up in price as long as there's some control over the supply, right? So there you go. And, that seems to be what's happening with this whole uptrend concept. So that's what I basically wanted to say. It's just crypto seems like it's literally at the golden, like God handing you the opportunity to become a millionaire right there in front of your face, right? Like, because what are these markets doing? They're uptrending. And then you just look at crypto, right? And it's like, how do you explain this discrepancy? And I just attempted to explain that discrepancy to you. And the basic solution is that you'd be buying theoretically here, but still expect to buy more. Remember, we've done the same. It all goes back to the same idea here, right? We're going back to the source Fibonacci's of where we think we can accumulate. And if we can accumulate at the inverse 702 of this low that we set here, this is clearly very likely the low for this cycle, right? If we make the Fibonacci from that low to the subsequent high of April of 2023, and we look at levels that are likely to accumulate, well, we see them, right? So yeah, it's you're getting to that zone. So you kind of expect a pullback, maybe some kind of capitulation on crypto, but everyone's frothing at the mouth. Everyone who's watching crypto is begging for this thing to dump right now. They're begging for this thing to dump, not because they're short, because they're going to buy. And that self-fulfilling prophecy is about to hit the fan, right? So that's what I'm saying here. So good, dude, good.